Welcome to Your Aha Life. I'm your host, Dr. Tanya Harris Cornelius. The Aha Life is a life of more joy, more purpose, and more fulfillment. Through these episodes, I will bring you stories of insight and inspiration to help you live the life that you dream about, the life that you are meant to live, your Aha Life. Enjoy the episode. Well, hi there. This is Tanya Cornelius with Your Aha Life. Welcome back. And today I have with me Terri Klass. And in just a moment, I'll share a little bit more about Terri. But welcome, Terri. I'm so glad you're here.
Oh, I'm so thrilled to be joining you today, Tanya.
Yeah, we're just going to have a conversation, just like we're in the same room together, hanging out and having a conversation around a really important topic, maybe a timely topic about second acts. And I think I just want to dig into that a little bit more because that's even something that sometimes I have thought about. And maybe would be a third act for me. I don't know, but we're going to talk about second acts and moving on from there and how to do that and what are some things that might get in the way. So Terri Klass, Terri, before we jump in, let me just say a little bit about you and your bio. And so I'm going to read from here. Terri Klass is a leadership skills training consultant, coach, and speaker who partners with organizations to create cultures of empowerment and to build their leadership pipelines. She delivers highly successful leadership workshops and is a speaker and author of articles about leadership. She is a co-author of her book, Energize Your Leadership. So you're a leadership guru, Terri. In addition, she is a member of the Forbes Coaching Council. Terri has an MBA and is Myers-Briggs certified. Again, so thrilled to welcome you on this, I guess it's afternoon for me and you because we're in the same time zones, but just happy to be with you today. We were sharing a little bit before I hit record about, I went out today for one of the first times with a girlfriend who asked me to go for a walk in the park with her. And initially, I was kind of hesitant because I've been keeping to myself, doing all of the social distancing stuff. And I said, you know what? It's a sunny day. It's a beautiful day outside today. And it's a good time. And so we can even practice social distancing even as we walk. So I went on a walk with her through one of our beautiful parks here. And we both had our mask on and we walked 6 feet apart and we had a wonderful conversation for about 2.5 miles. And then at the end of that, we gave each other virtual hugs and it felt really good. I was so glad that I decided to do that. And I just wish all of our viewers and listeners wish you well, be safe. Practice social distancing, shelter in place, follow the guidelines of your state, local, and even our federal officials. Also good common sense, to keep yourselves and your families safe. So Terri, how are you? How are things going with you? And what are you doing to, keep yourself safe and even sane during this time?
Well, I think sane is the most important piece here. Yeah, I'm trying to keep uplifted. Every day I wake up. Some days I don't remember which day it is.
Yes.
Right? We get very confused sometimes. And the weekends and the weekdays seem to kind of get confusing. But I really tried to keep up with friends. I'm a people person. So I really get energized by connecting with people and hearing their voices and seeing their faces. So that's been a positive. I was thinking about when you went for a walk with your friend, did you feel that you were even though you were 6 feet apart at least, right? Did you feel really connected? Did you feel like you were really together?
Great question. Yeah. I felt connected. So you're a people person. I would venture to say maybe a little more extroverted than I am. I am in a true sense of the word, an introvert. I get my energy from going inward. You're Myers-Briggs certified, so you know what I mean. Um, but even introverts, we need people. We were never meant to navigate this world alone or in isolation, so social distancing doesn't mean social isolation. Um, but yeah, it was remarkable that even 6 feet apart, we had one of the best conversations that just flowed from one topic to the next, and it did feel good. I felt very connected. Great question.
Yeah. Now, I think it's really important to have those times and like you say, to do it safely, but
Yes.
but you have to have that physical kind of connection at some part. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And figuring out the new normal, even if it's the temporary new normal, what is that going to be? It won't be just being in your house by yourself all the time. Although I have Marley, he's my dog. He keeps me
Aw.
company. Yeah.
Oh, that's so, what kind of dog is Marley?
Marley is a Woodle. You know, he's one of those poodle designer dogs. He's up here in the office with me, so you heard his name.
Oh,
Um, but he is a Wheaten Terrier and poodle mix, and he's the cutest thing. And he's been a really great companion for me during this time.
I think animals in general have been amazing companions
Oh
and
yeah,
have helped so many people,
yeah,
through this difficult time. So that's
yeah,
one.
yeah. So we're here to talk about second acts. Before we do that, I know I read your bio. What would you like our viewers and listeners to know about your journey? Like, how did you get to kind of where this, I don't know what act this might be for you. And we're going to talk about how we even define acts in our lives. What is the second act or third act or whatever? But why don't you share a little bit more about your journey?
Oh, thanks for asking, Tanya. So like you, I began as a teacher. I got out of school originally, and I was going to teach English, and I was actually loving it until the job market kind of dried up, which
Mm,
sometimes does impact our choices, as you know. And so I decided to try a business job, and I fell in love with working on a team. I fell in love with dealing with customers. And I realized at that point, you know what? This could be an interesting pivot for me. But
yes.
of course, I didn't have the real business skills. So that's when I went back, for my MBA. It's so interesting how we morph into these different, situations. And then after that, I became a banker, which you might say, oh my gosh, you're such a people person. Working
Yes.
technical lending, being a lending officer might be very challenging. It was. It worked out. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself, and that's what each of our situations. And after that, I was able at the bank to switch to an internal HR position,
Okay.
training, and that began my trajectory that I've landed on today. And it kind of meshes the original teaching piece with the business piece.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And you're feel free to continue if you have more to say. But yeah, we do have similar paths, and that,
Yeah.
my undergraduate was out of the College of Journalism and Communications at the University of Florida. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to do when I graduated. My mother had died the year before, so I was a little bit of feeling lost at sea. And I had a girlfriend, one of my best friends. She is my best friend. Her name is Tanya, also Dr. Tanya, another Dr. Tanya.
Oh, wow.
But she convinced me to come down to Miami and accept a teaching position, because Miami was accepting college grads who perhaps were not education majors, but there was a teaching shortage at the time. And so they were offering an alternative route to certification. And I took it because I didn't know what else to do. And I thought that I would do it just for, until I figured out what I was going to really do. And like you, I fell in love with it. and just continued on. And at some point, and I'll speed this up because I want to get back to you. But at some point, I realized I loved what I was doing. And I wanted to try my hat in the corporate sector. And so, like you, I transitioned into a corporate training job, and then my career kind of took off from there as well. So yeah, we have similar paths. It's so wonderful that to talk with you and to listen to your story, because I see elements of mine through you. And so yeah, I can't wait to jump in. So before we go to what is the second act, anything else you'd like to share?
Well, so you mentioned originally that I'm all about leadership, and I just wanted to share this one point because I really am. That's my tagline, right? I really believe that we don't need a position or a title to lead. Each and every one of us can lead from wherever we are. Well, all we need to do is to step up and take ownership and accountability for our actions and our decisions. I'm a big believer that no matter where we are, we can lead, and we can lead through our second acts. And each of us, no matter where you are on your trajectory, you can lead through the second act if you choose and you own your choices.
Yeah. Oh yes. Amen. All of the above. Absolutely. So let's go to the question. My first question is, what is a second act?
All right. So I'm going to begin with a little quote.
Okay. Right? I love quotes. I love quotes, Terri.
All right. So the author of the Chronicles of Narnia, C.S. Lewis, this was the quote that he wrote. You're never too old to set another goal or dream another dream. And truer words were never written, right? I am a believer that no matter where we are, no matter what point we are in our lives, our personal lives or professional lives, we can make a pivot, we can make a change if that is what we need to do. So the way I might define a second act is basically it's an intentional transition from one point in our career to another. And it often is a point where we are deciding to leave our current workplace situation, or making a very big or a big pivot in our careers. And we might want to change into a different kind of a career.
Yeah. Is it always intentional?
So that's a great question. So I guess just like you and I might have switched from one career to another.
True.
Sometimes things do happen. And actually, you got a great point. Sometimes opportunities present themselves at different points in our careers. And when we are able to see them and visualize them, we can seize upon them. The thing with the second act, which what I was hoping to share, is it's really all about planning for it. To be really successful, it's less about circumstance. Okay. Although maybe the opportunity could be part of the circumstance.
Yeah.
But it's really about intentional planning for it, because we oftentimes don't plan enough. We don't think, we get caught up in the finances of our next career move or leaving the workplace. And we don't always think about the planning of what we'll do.
Yeah, and that can hold us back, because I love that you brought that up. And yeah, it was wondering if it's always intentional. Well, the circumstances might not have been of the person's choosing, my choosing, your choosing, or whomever, but what we do with it is our choice, right? That can be intentional. So our mindset and making that shift, and perhaps that pivot in our own minds, and maybe you're going to get into that, helps us to take advantage of the opportunity that is laid before us. So yeah, I love that. So my next question or thought here is, when are people most likely to contemplate a second act?
So that's an interesting question, right? Because the world is so open. We have so many choices, so many opportunities today. I would say oftentimes it happens later on in our careers. It happens when we feel that we need to make a change. We'll get into kind of what prompts it in a second.
Okay.
It happens usually later on. And it oftentimes happens, I would say, 3 to 5 years before we're thinking of leaving the workplace and
Wow.
maybe even retiring or whatever it is we want to do. And the thing is, it's a time to really reflect on what we want to do next. And we need to, the other thing is, people retire and leave the workplace today in their 40s and their 50s.
Yes.
No more is it just about, 60 or whatever.
60s, right. We see a lot of millennials who decide I'm out, and I want to become an entrepreneur. I'm raising one, well, not raising one. He's already raised. He's, late 20s, but he's already looking ahead at, I guess, a second act for him. So it's not perhaps age-based as much as it is mindset-based, right? And when people decide to make that move.
Yeah. It really is at a point. So what prompts it, right? Why do we even want to pursue a second?
Right.
I mean, oftentimes what happens, and I don't know with your son, if you get to a point in your career, you've been very successful, you've achieved great things, you've gotten great recognition, but then one day you finally come to the conclusion you're not really feeling fulfilled.
You have this aha moment.
Yes, exactly.
Terri, you have this aha.
Moment. Oh my goodness. I am just not where I want to be anymore.
Right.
Something is not working, right? And something is missing. And you get this voice within yourself saying, you need to think about doing something else at this point in your life. And it's a very, it's a tricky time, but it's also a time to lean into it and to think,
yes,
right? Lean in and give it deep, meaningful thought. Be thoughtful about what you're feeling.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to put myself in it, but I don't want to insert myself throughout all of this, because I really want our viewers and listeners to see themselves in this. And yeah, I'm probably the classic person, the client for you, of looking within the next 3 to 5 years to say, yeah, I want to do something different. I want to leave, corporate America, perhaps altogether, and or at least have a different relationship with it than I have today. I don't know, but I just can't help but keep going back to, it's not always the classic. I'm probably the classic, right? It's not always the classic. It is the person who, at whatever point they are, they really are looking to pivot and being intentional about it. And so wherever you find yourself, those of you who are viewing or listening to this podcast, wherever you find yourself, yeah, as Terri has said, you might have a great deal of success under your belt. Likely you do. You've checked off a lot of boxes. And then either one day you wake up and you say, I'm not fulfilled. There must be more to it than checking off yet another box. Or you may say, I've been tremendously successful and this has been greatly fulfilling. I just know that I'm at an age and at a point and at a time in my life where I want to do something different. That's kind of my story, Terri, is that I love my career. I love the work that I do. And I feel very fulfilled through it and very fulfilled in my life, but yet and still, I know that there is still something different and something more to go to. Do you find that with, many of your clients, that they might even be fulfilled, but they still are looking for what's the next thing that will be different and even more fulfilling for them?
Yeah, and you bring up a great point, Tanya. It doesn't have to necessarily be a complete change, right? It could be a modest change. It could be a step in a slightly different direction. And I'll talk about some of the things that we need to think about, but it doesn't have to be enormous. And you could do it in stages, right? You don't have to do a big leap all at once. The thing, that we have to wrap our heads around is you need to create and figure out what you're going to do with your new routine, your work day. If you're used to every day going into an office and going into an organization and you have that daily routine, you have to plan for what you're going to do with your new routine. And that's so important.
That's so important. Why don't we go there? Because I think the whole crux of all of this is that at some point, whether it's earlier, whether it's mid-career, or whether it's late career, at some point, each of us at least starts to contemplate this. What's next for me is the question that will come up.
Yeah.
And I love what you said at the very beginning is about us being intentional. The second act, the way that you frame it, is an intentional act. It's not haphazard. It's not, well, if you're going to be successful, it's not haphazard. You don't just fall into it. You create a plan around it and be more thoughtful about it. So let's go into planning. Like what do you think that plan consists of? When should people start it? All of those things.
Yeah. So I think a great place to start is to look at this as an opportunity to explore new things, to have the opportunity to think about in our current situations, in our current work life situations, in our current personal, part of this is our personal life situation as well, to look at the things that really bring us meaning, where we have really excelled, where we have felt the most, the greatest purpose and impact in our careers. So I always like to begin at that point, because when you focus on those areas, you know that when you move into a second act, you will be able to draw on those kind of opportunities that draw on those values and those things that were important to you. For example, that I talk about values. Values are at the heart of everything we do, right, Tanya? I mean,
yes,
they drive everything.
They drive everything. They shape what we think about, the actions we take, the behaviors, the decisions. I'm so glad you started with that.
Yeah,
With values. Yeah.
Values are important, and they can be values in terms of, we talked about that you felt like I was very extroverted and you were more reflective and more of an
yes.
introvert, perhaps. That it's an important thing to know about ourselves. Because when we do eventually go into our second acts, we want to understand what excites us, what energizes us. So that would be something that we value. If, for example, we really need to be with people, we really want to spend time with people, we have to make sure that in our second acts, we incorporate that in our choice. On the other hand, if we really need more time to be reflective and spend more individual time. A lot of people spend years in organizations with large teams,
yes,
and they have tons of people, but maybe in their second act, they want to be true to themselves and say, you know what, this is my chance, my opportunity to do some more individual, reflective kinds of work. And I see that all the time. People start to, they might be in a big organization, but then they want to write. They want to spend time, privately with their thoughts and connect with their thoughts. So they will spend time writing. They're all different. So we have to understand what really drives us and what we value and what's important. So that's kind of where I always begin. And then I like to look at the things in our work life and say to ourselves, well, what's working, what's not working? This is a helpful exercise because it gives us an opportunity to see where things are going well and where things aren't, what we like and equally what we dislike.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought of that? I mean, some of the things that are, in your current situation that you really don't want to take with you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love, as much of an introvert as I am, I do love small groups, and I do love working one-on-one because I like to feel like I'm journeying with the person, and really kind of being almost like a sideline coach to watch them like really come into their own. And believe in their dreams and all of that. So I like a more intimate, personal relationship with the people. So I think for me, I'll speak to large groups, but in terms of working in the nitty gritty, I would definitely thrive more and get a lot of energy from small groups and one-on-one relationships, working with people. The things I don't like so much, of course, the selling or the convincing, or even some of the back end administration that it may take to kind of run my own business, whatever that looks like. But I think those things are, they come with, some of that comes with what I see myself doing beyond that. So getting maybe some help that, for people that maybe love doing that stuff, how can I use resources to help me with that? And so that it frees me up to do the things that do bring me a lot of energy. That's how I'm thinking about it. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. You know what? I agree. So for me, like you, I love the training piece. I loved working within workshops and people and connecting with them in groups. What I learned, I needed to do speaking a lot, right? And even keynotes. That was never my big hot thing. I mean, I did it okay. But for me, I really preferred. And as I morphed into my second act, I really needed to be in these groups as opposed to speaking. On the other hand, there are some people who just loves to speak and, they get
Right.
pleasure out of that. So yes, we
Yeah.
have to choose things.
Yeah. So, okay. So the first two is identifying your core values.
Right.
And secondly, kind of making a list of the things that you enjoy today and the things that, they don't bring you a lot of joy to do them. Not that you will get away with not doing some of doing those, you might have to, but being aware of where your strengths are and your likes and your dislikes. So those are our first two, right? In our plan, and starting to craft our plan.
Right. And you're going to see certain patterns emerging.
Mm.
The other thing that I like to do is to think about your interests and your passions, your hobbies, and the causes. Think about how you might have volunteered during these past 5 to 10 years. How do you spend time outside of work? What fascinates you? What interests you? Because during your second act, it will be a great opportunity to start focusing on some of those, if you can, and integrate them. And I'll share some stories, but what I've learned is that people can actually integrate those passions and make a living and pursue a very, very fulfilling second act. Yeah.
I don't know. I keep jumping in. I want to I want to listen to you, but I'm just soaking in all of this good stuff, Terri, because you're bringing up such great points. I think about it. We talked about it even coming out of college, and this is whether you are early career, mid-career, late career. Coming out of college, maybe you had the mindset, I just got to get a job. I have to learn how now to take care of myself, be self-sufficient. And maybe a few of you, knew exactly what it is that was your passion already. And you knew exactly what you were going to do, and you went for it, and you're still loving that. That is awesome. But many of us, we did kind of fall into our early choices, and we made a career out of it. And we might have made a darn good career and really do enjoy a part of that. But what I hear you saying, Terri, is wherever you are today, if you're thinking about a second act, you now get to create that. You get to really learn from your experiences and maybe not fall into something, but actually intentionally. I think we're going to just keep going back to this word. Intentionally start crafting and creating what your second act will look like based on all the things that you have learned about yourself. I love that. I just want to bring that point out.
Thanks, Tanya. And also the other piece is talking to people. So you say, you mentioned an important piece here. Sometimes we don't know what our passions are. People talk about passions and interests, but maybe, as you say, we've been so focused on our careers. We've been so focused on making sure that we did well that we really didn't have the opportunity to explore outside interests. This is a very, very common thing with many of us. We just haven't had that chance. So thinking of a second act, it's a perfect opportunity to think about what excites us. So I have this one story.
Yes.
There was this woman in one of my that I worked with, one of my workshops, and she started to share that she really loved animals. There you go. She loved especially animal shelters. And she always wanted to learn more about it, but she, as you say, she worked so hard her whole life. She just didn't have time to really explore this other area. And there was another person in the workshop who started to share how she actually was currently involved in working with animal shelters. And the two of them started to talk about it. And we all listened. Exactly. They made the connection. And before you knew it, the first woman, the tears started to come down her face. And she was so amazed that she could actually now take something that she just dreamt about and just imagined, but could actually visualize making it part of her second act.
Yeah.
It was so talking to people, I find so powerful because maybe they've gone through it already, or maybe they do have similar interests to us.
Yeah, that's such a great story. And like you said, if you don't talk, you might be missing out on a great resource or an aha moment, or a person who, kind of, if you start thinking about your life as you're moving along, you have these series of aha moments, or these aha moments are like breadcrumbs, or, hey, I got a puzzle. So maybe there was a missing puzzle piece. And by talking to that woman, the other woman in the workshop was able to plug in that missing puzzle piece. And that's what brought her to tears, because she knew it. She knew that she had finally connected those dots and had found her passion. So I so agree with you, just expressing the things that we enjoy and love, the passions that we have, the causes that we feel are worth fighting for. Those are all really clues to what might be good second acts for us.
Yeah. Again, the values too, what's important to us. I mean, again, think of it as a time of exploration, curiosity, and just being open to all possibilities. I love the thought of just, it's finally in our lives we can do that, right? We can take the opportunity to do that. And this is another thing that I do, which I think is very powerful. Some of us are very visual, right? We're all about pictures.
Yes.
So another maybe helpful thing to some of the listeners and viewers is to create a vision board for our second act. So this is very cool. I really have fun with this. We go back to our childhood with this, right? Our cutting and our pasting and crayons and markers. It's so extraordinary. So basically, and super glue. Oh my gosh.
So can I show you, Terri? Because I don't know if my viewers will see it. I know my listeners, if you're only listening, you won't see it. But way back in the back of my room, not sure if you're able to see that on a little easel.
I do.
Yeah, that's my 2020 vision board.
Oh, I love it.
And but I love that you say create a vision board for the second act. So this is kind of my year by year vision board. Like, what do I really want to lean into for 2020? And of course, 2020 has been upended in a lot of ways, but I keep it in front of me because even if I can't do everything on the vision board, I challenge myself to say, I can do the majority of the things that are on that vision board, and so I keep it in front of me. So I'm so glad you brought up vision board.
Oh, they're fantastic. They're so much fun. And if you say you're a person, maybe some of the listeners feel like, oh, this isn't for me. Well, I had a gentleman that I worked with who said the same thing. I just am not into cutting and pasting, Terri. This is not my thing. I said, oh, give it a try, give it a try. And he did. And he went to town and he cut out pictures and letters and created mantras. And he created this vision board. And then he
Wow.
shared it. And once again, the emotions ran deep.
Yes.
He couldn't believe it. The thing with the second act, I find, it's very emotional, Tanya, right?
Yeah.
Why is it emotional? I mean, I wonder why. Is it a release for us? A relief and a release that we finally can get to do some of the things that we've always wanted to pursue and always wanted to, go after.
When you said that, I felt the emotion. I'm not even really, I don't consider myself as much of an empath, Myers-Briggs. I'm more of a ISINTJ. So,
Right?
but when you said that, yes, I felt the emotion of, for the first time for some of us, is we are not living life by happenstance. We are creating the lives that we dream about. And that can be so liberating and scary for some, because we've always kind of followed what we thought we should do or what we've been told to do. And now when we reach a point in our lives where no one's telling us to do anything, no one's saying you should do, maybe they are, but you are for the first time really owning your life full stop and saying, I get to create this. And I would imagine, I mean, you work with clients, I'd love to hear it. It can create a sense of overwhelm for some. It can be so liberating and freeing and energizing for others. I think the emotions can run the gamut. But as soon as you said that, yeah, I felt an emotion. Like I felt it somatically in my body.
Oh, that's yeah. And that's the other emotion that happens.
Mm.
Sometimes we get very excited and we're able to do it and we get very emotional, but sometimes we get frozen.
Mm.
And it stops us in our tracks. And I've seen this with clients as well, where there's a sense of fear, a fear that prevents us and blocks us from pursuing the second act. It's almost like we've always had certainty in our current positions, right? We knew what we were going to do each day, and we woke up and we went into our situations and our work worlds, and we knew our times. And now all of a sudden, the possibility of not having that real definite peace in our lives.
So I know I keep interjecting.
Yeah.
You know what? That's what it's supposed to be, right? We're having an exchange here. We're having an exchange. But what you're saying, I've seen it. I've seen it personally with family and friends. So here's how it's shown up where I've seen it. When someone gets laid off. So yeah, the circumstances were not of their choosing, but they get laid off. And it freezes. I mean, they freeze in that. And, they got to work through a lot of emotions, sure, of being laid off, whether that is fear, whether that is anger, frustration, disappointment, grief. All of those things are understandable and getting to work through that. But again, they were used to having this routine. They were used to having kind of this roadmap for their lives that got blown up with the layoff, and then not sure how to fully navigate from there. And the other example that came to mind for me are professional athletes. Well, not even just professional, because I have my son, my nephew. I've known athletes who have been in their sport since they were toddlers even, or certainly very young children, and they went all the way through, played, were world-class athletes playing at the highest levels in college, and then many also going on to the professional leagues. And then at whatever point those things come to an end, here's what I found. Because that life was kind of laid out. You had a routine, and it was routine that other people kind of organized for you. You knew you had to get up at a certain time, you had to take classes at a certain time, you had to work out at a certain time, you had to go to study hall at a certain time, you had to be in training camp at a certain, all of those things were kind of told to you. So when that life is no more, and you have to shift, you have to pivot, because that's what we're talking about. A second act is, it's your pivot. Then you have to start creating your own routines. And for some, that is that's upending. They're not sure where to start or how to create those healthy routines for their kind of next juncture in their lives.
Yeah, and it is scary. It can be scary.
Yeah.
I equate it, I try to think, think about situations in our life that we've faced change that was scary. For example, I always think some of us have bought homes, right? It was scary thinking about buying a house, but what did we do to buy the house? We planned. We first might have connected with a realtor. We figured out where we wanted to live. We figured out what the market was like. We figured out we went through a process. Well, in the exact same way, we've got a plan for this change as well. I think the biggest mistake we could make by thinking it will just happen. And that's kind of the piece here. And I'll tell you another secret piece here. I know for myself, once I started planning, I stopped being scared, because all of a sudden it was okay. Right? Did you ever, I wasn't scared anymore. And I said, oh my God, Terri, you can do this. You could really make this happen. And you don't have to be scared anymore. And this is what you have to do. These are the steps. So the plan itself.
The plan itself. I'm a natural planner because I'm an off the charts J. If the highest is 30 points, I am 30 plus.
Yeah.
I am a planner. I think it's important to say, even with our plans, we have to remain agile. We have to be flexible and be able to adapt. Because, for example, we're in this pandemic. None of us could have planned, could have foreseen this. So, I've learned for myself, for my own sanity, if you will, is while I feel much more calm and at peace, knowing I have a plan to work from, also remembering to stay flexible with that plan, because there are things that are not in our control that will come up, and it's better to have a plan when those things happen than not, but also to remember that you need to flex at times. Oh, I'm curious, Terri, what's your Myers-Briggs, if you don't mind? I know this is always a personal thing. Are you more of a perceiving? Oh, you're a J as well. So J, for our listeners and viewers, is judging. It doesn't mean you judge. It just means that you do like to control kind of your environment, and you do that. One of the ways you do that is you like to work from a plan, and you like to have to-do lists, and you like to have a certain amount of routine and certainty in your life. But as long as you're able to flex, then the plan can be a true advantage for you.
Yeah. So that's an interesting piece, because there are going to be some people who are more spontaneous.
Yes.
Right. So let's think about that for a second. So for what if we're more spontaneous? How does this impact? Well, I'm going to say that even if we are spontaneous, the best way to start this whole process is to have an outline, right? To have a basic outline. Don't fill in every detail. The J's will, those of us
J's will go to the detail, but you're right. I
general
outline that you're giving the different option, because there will be some people to say, well, I'm not a to-do list person. I'm not this off the charts planner or whatever. So how does this show up for me? I love that you're spending some time on this.
Yeah. So if you are more lean in that direction, you still can work towards a goal. And that's the other piece. Once you have a clearer vision of where you want to go, what you want to do, then we've got to set goals. We've got to set goals and objectives. The plan will go nowhere. It'll stay on the vision board. if we don't if we don't set goals and objectives with time frames. So maybe even if we're more spontaneous, we can do that. We could break it down into smaller steps and just focus on one or two of them and see where it takes you, with the understanding that this whole, for anybody, it's evolving.
Yes.
Our second acts are constantly evolving. And like, whether it's outside facts that impact us, or something within ourselves that makes us want to go in a slightly different pivot.
I was talking to another guest just a few days ago, and he said something that is so true, because he was going through kind of our different fears and naming those different fears. And one of the fears, one of the reasons for our fear is this fear of uncertainty. And he said, yes, we have the fear of uncertainty because we're holding on to an illusion that anything is certain, and nothing is certain. So, so being comfortable with ambiguity, being comfortable that life is uncertain, and it doesn't stop you from moving forward. Every day, the sun comes up new every day, and you move forward. So those of us who are off the charts planners, or those of us who prefer a great deal of open-endedness and spontaneity, just remembering that certainty is an illusion. And all of us are constantly operating in a world of uncertainty.
I love that.
I loved it too when he said that, because that fear was the fear for me, because he named like 8 different kind of emotions of fear, whether it's fear of rejection, fear of, the imposter, fear of being found out, whatever. And then he got down to fear of loss and fear of uncertainty. And Giovanni Denson is who the guest was. And I hope my viewers, listeners will listen to that show as well. But when he got down to fear of loss, losing what you think you have, wow. Fear of uncertainty of, well, what if I do this and I'm actually not in the place where I am today, or whatever. And he said, well, the whole idea of that anything is certain is an illusion. And I loved it. It was just, again, it was this liberating, freeing moment that, we operate every day in uncertainty. And so give ourselves more credit for being able to do that.
Yeah. And, you and I spoke a little bit that kind of during this difficult time, during this pandemic, it might even be a perfect opportunity for some of us to start thinking about our second acts. We might have some time to reflect when we're off a Zoom call or whatever, in between Zoom calls.
In between, yeah.
That's about how we can describe it. And it might be a great time to begin thinking about what our second acts, might look like. Become curious and just start to think about, if I could, what would I do? Mm-hmm. Where would I go? What really fascinates me, and I deserve to follow those areas that will bring me great joy and great fulfillment.
Yes.
That this could be actually a great time for many of us to start.
Timely, very timely. And I think some people perhaps are already there. And this podcast, this episode will validate that, and will give them more confidence that, yes, this might be a great time for you to think about, the pivot that you want to make, or the second act that you want to make. So yeah, perfect timing. So we went through, I'm going to get this all mixed up, but we went through identifying your values, identifying your likes and dislikes, creating a vision and putting together a vision board, and then setting goals around it. And then knowing that we still have to remain flexible in a world of uncertainty, but having a plan is better than not having one. And whether you go to the details or whether you stay at the, the big picture level, it's okay. Whatever feels right and comfortable to you, as long as you know your North Star and where you're headed. and that you get to create the life that you dream about. This is a great opportunity. So whether this second act came about out of your own sheer will, feeling that you are not fulfilled and you want to do something about it, or whether it came about through, being laid off, maybe through the circumstances even of this pandemic, you're now ready to make a move and put your, move forward with your life and the things that you think about. Did I get all of those, Terri? I was trying to, keep it all,
Great.
keep it all up here.
Excellent. The only thing I might add is that talk to people.
Yes. Yes.
Share your dreams.
Connecting the dots. Yes.
Yeah. Because sometimes others who've been through it and are going through it, or who want to go through it, are great people to bounce ideas off of and to share. That's the only addition I might add.
Yeah.
Perfect, Tanya. You did great.
See, I'm internalizing all of this. This is really great. So I have, maybe we've already covered this, but what might prevent someone from exploring a second act? Did we cover that already, or is there more you want to talk about?
Years. Yeah. And not knowing if it's the right time and being unsure about it. Yeah, I think the lack of being a definite situation and knowing for certain what's going to happen sometimes prevents us from just beginning the process.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think we owe it to ourselves to at least begin the process. If we think if the timing is right, for whatever reason, if it's, something that happened to us, it's a great time, to start that process.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So
this has been so awesome.
It's been wonderful, and
it went fast, right?
Oh, it did. And it's so wonderful to connect with you, and
yeah,
so many wonderful, and I'm really so happy to share this important concept, because a lot of times people don't talk about their second acts, and it's just not one of those things, but we don't have to be afraid.
We don't have to be afraid, and we don't have to do it alone. So
Yep.
I love that. So
Yeah.
Terri, as you know, this podcast is Your Aha Life. I have my website. I mean, virtually everything I do is Your Aha Life. And for me, I kind of define Your Aha Life as a life of more joy, more purpose, and more fulfillment. But what that looks like for everyone is so different, as unique as the person. And so I'd love for you to share, what does your aha life mean to you, and how are you living your aha life?
Such a great question. I am living my aha life. I got to choose this amazing leadership development and coaching career that has brought me such incredible joy. I feel like I have purpose. I feel that when one person turns to me and says, Terri, thank you. You really made a difference in helping me go through a difficult situation. And I feel right. I feel like that is what I was meant to be doing in my life. That's my pure joy in helping others. I do. I'm a nurturer, and yes, I'm able to do that each and every day. And in my personal life, in my professional life, my volunteer life, which I do, it is incredible. And so for me, that is my journey, and it keeps evolving. It keeps changing.
It keeps evolving. Yes, we're always becoming, right? We're always continuing to grow and develop ourselves.
Yes.
Well, thank you once again for joining me on Your Aha Life. I know that this message, your background, what you are doing out with your clients, but also those of our viewers and listeners that will see this and listen to this episode will gain tremendously from you. So thank you so much. Now let's talk about this. I'm sorry, one more thing. How can our viewers or listeners get in touch with you?
Well, I have a website. The website is www.terriklassconsulting.com. All my offerings are there, all my philosophies, all the things that I can help you with are probably there. So please check it out. I also do a weekly leadership blog that comes from my website as well, that I hope can be helpful. And that's all I really want to do, is to help others.
Yeah. So cool. And I'll put all of that in the show notes so they know, because it's Terri, Terri, and Klass is Klass. Terri Klass. So thank you so much once again, and be safe, continue to be well, and I'll talk to you soon, Terri.
Thank you, Tanya. You too. Stay safe, stay well, enjoy.
I will. Bye-bye. You too. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching. I'm Dr. Tanya Harris Cornelius. Come back again in another couple of weeks for a brand new episode. Hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you soon.